Hello everyone, welcome. I'm excited to see all of you back here in the afternoon. So we're going to talk about now you've got Totango, now what? My name is Robin Fernandez and I'm a Director of Customer Success here, and I've been with the company almost 5 years. Some of my customers are NTT, they're in the audience. I've got SAP clearly, and then I also have my Autodesk family way back there in the back. They just went live a week ago, so this is very timely for them. Anyone else recently finished an onboarding or is in the middle of an onboarding? Got a couple of hands? Good, so this is a great session for you to be in. Fun fact about me, thanks to NTT, I traveled to 7 different countries and 5 states in the last year. So very lucky to be able to do that. So we're gonna talk about life after onboarding, and then we're gonna turn it over to the SAP team and they'll introduce themselves, and then we'll do some Q&A. Onboarding, it's a lot of work, we're done. Whew, right? Mission complete, check it off, right? We got our business goals, we did all our outcome-based, we did our KPIs, we got all that data from all those different places and got it all in, so we have the one complete view, did all the configuration and the success plays and the campaigns and all the stuff. They're trained. I'm done. Not done. Still have work to do because you've done all of this work, but we got to keep it going, right? As your company evolves, Totango's going to evolve with you. What's going to happen? You've got product enhancements. Your product is changing. Whether you're on a 2-week sprint or you're doing it quarterly, there's new things and new functionality that you want to be able to track in Totango. Are they adopting those things? Increased customer segmentation. Sometimes when our customers join us, they start with just one part of their segment of their customers, and then they start bringing in all the rest. Maybe you're growing, right? Now we got to look at it in a regional view. So all those different segments. New attributes and metrics. Sometimes you come in and you go, phase 1, we're really just looking at this. Well, what's phase 2 and phase 3? We need to bring those things in a very thoughtful way. More processes, more best practices. As you learn and evolve, you might change some of those best practices. What you do for your one-to-many might be different than what you're doing for your high-touch segment. Health. This is one of those things everyone forgets about. Y'all said it, and then you all forget about it. But as you're evolving, your health needs to evolve with you. Don't set it and forget it. Come back and look at it quarterly. Does it still make sense? Are we still seeing that the greens are the right greens, or are your greens turning and we need to make some changes? So pay attention to that. Team roles. Maybe you started with just CS, but now you're bringing in sales and some other teams that are going to be using that information. And then additional success blocks. Some of you start with onboarding and renewal, but now you want to track escalation or voice of customer, which is the next session. Okay? Some things you want to think about as you continue in success is have a key owner of Totango. You have these great people that are really owning it, but there needs to be someone there to ensure there's no collision course happening. So if many people running it, you're going to run into data that's in there and no one knows why it's there, and now it's just creating havoc for you. Continuous learning, right? Keep training the team, best practices, making sure you continue to have engineering support. One of the things we see in onboarding is that sometimes it can be hard to get that engineering support, but we want to bring them in early and keep them so we're still part of those sprints so we can get the data that we need. And think about a monthly newsletter, right? Continuous learning. You're all here at Summit. That's a great opportunity. What are some of the other ways we can continue to teach our team, whether it's about something new in Totango that makes their day better? Maybe it saves them 15 minutes an hour. It's a nice time savings, right? And maybe some other new best practices or best practices that you're doing. So some key things you want to be thinking about as you continue to evolve. I want to go ahead and turn it over to the SAP team. Wrong way. There we go. And they're going to talk about how they're doing this and how they do their run to road to release.
Thank you, Robin. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Sujana here. I'm here with my colleagues, Kaushal and Tori from SAP, the seriously awesome people team. And we all belong to the business solution team led by Shelby. Okay, so this is a customary slide, and you heard from Shelby what we are, what SAP stands for, what is our customer base across so many industries and our employees counts. I'm not going to repeat it, but you know. And then let's move to another slide. This is also a familiar one, SAP journey. So you heard quite a lot about our amazing journey, especially our growth in the cloud area from Kerry and Shelby this morning. Now that you heard about our growth, this growth also comes with a lot of baggage. complexity, complications, frictions, opportunities, and challenges. So this is why it becomes all the more important to really have a very successful operating model. And what you see here is the timeline, and as you know how quickly we went from to go live within 5 months, and then we've been live. So right before the go live, each one on the team were supermen and superwomen trying to do everything and anything to get Totango out of the doors. But once we have that, as Robin was rightly saying, we need to take a step back and standardize, operationalize, scalable, sustain. How are we going to do this forward? So that's what here we talk about. So the need for a single platform for customer success is all the more important because of 3 major things. One is we came up with 11 different LOBs or cloud entities. So we need to harmonize these LOBs or processes using a single platform. Secondly, we need to match up to our industry standards, the growing standards and the complexity. And lastly, it's also the speed at which SAP is growing in the cloud area. We need something very sustainable and scalable. And that's how Totango came into our lives and how we operation it. So let's quickly move into our amazing operating model. Doesn't it look great? Beautiful, right? Yes, it looks sophisticated, it looks beautiful, but this is not the way we started. So we evolved and we are learning each and every day. So I am going to walk you through this process, and then my colleagues, Tori and Kaushal, are going to deep dive or double click on a couple of areas from here. Okay, let's start. It all starts off with requirements, and as you see, requirements, the minute there is a new platform, everyone in the organization wants to get in their Christmas list, right? So we get requirements again from different sources. As you see here, it could be from our franchise team, which is our business team. It comes from a best practice council for various areas such as high touch, digital, renewal, and then another area is voice of field, so through our support tickets, and then a service. So there is a lot of requests and requirements coming in, and what do we do them? We document them and track them centrally in Jira. Jira is our SAP tool that is tracking all of our requirements, and it goes through the life cycle. So once we have this, our business team, which is led by Kerry, they look at this request and they try to prioritize based on a roadmap for the next 6 months, a year, our cloud strategy. They're prioritizing it, and once it's prioritized, what does it result into? It could result into a new persona or a new group added. Let's say we want to bring in AEs, so that's a new user persona that's getting added. Or it could lead into like bringing in new data or KPIs. We want to track customer reference or renewals, or it could be advocacy. So it could bring in new data. It could lead into bringing in a new process as such. Maybe we didn't go live with renewal in phase 1, so we want to bring that in now. Or the last one could be product innovation. So there could be requests. Our end users could be very creative. They're coming up with a request that the platform cannot handle it now. So it could be a product innovation request. So this is what it ends to. And then once the prioritization is done, what you see here highlighted in this yellow box, we have something called cohort model. So this is where the business and the platform or the solution team is like working early in collaborating with each other. So we from the solution team are coming in as SMEs, subject matter experts, representing Totango as functionality, and we're able to provide our early feedback when a requirement comes in. So we are refining it, and we're able to define it and create a solid foundation. Even before the requirement goes through the life cycle, we create a solid foundation, make it a viable requirement, and that's what is cohort model. Once we do that, we get into the regular life cycle where it is weekly calls. What we have there is business requirements review. So this is a call that happens every week at the beginning of the week, where we have participation from both business and the solution team. We review, so all the groundwork of the requirement is already done in the cohort model. So we are not really wasting time arguing over things. Rather, it's all set, and if we move it from in review to business review status. And later in that week, we have the scoping assessment call, where we talk about the delivery, the technical feasibility, and more around the execution. So once this is done, the requirement, and all of this is done in Jira. So we have a method to our madness. It's moving along, it's trackable, and it is visible. Anyone could see what's happening with the request. So once we have this, we get into a little bit of the planning and execution mode, where we create the backlogs, work packages, and it gets assigned to each of us As functional leads, each of us are assigned or we are specialized in a certain area. Let's say if I'm in charge for health, and if there is a requirement for health, it's getting assigned to me. So once we have that as functional leads on the solution team, we go in, configure it, test, validate, do all of those things. And the last part here is test, deploy, and enable. Although it's the last component, it is the most important component because we are taking our functionality across 2,000 CS employees, right? So it's a huge set of audience. So the deployment is huge. We have quite a lot of channels and very effective ways of deploying and enablement and communication. I'm not going to deep dive into that today because there is a separate session tomorrow about change management and stakeholder communication. Please join that session. You're going to get wealth of information there. And also, what you see, as I said, we use Jira across this process, and the green bar at the bottom is a monthly release. So we go live with new functionality or enhanced functionality on a monthly basis. Basically, our sprints are 4 weeks. So we go live every month. Now that we've finished, we are going to double click on a couple of areas. First one is data. Who doesn't like data, right? It's fun. So Tori is going to talk about data, and then that will be followed by Kaushal on product innovation.
Right. So now is usually the point where everyone's eyes glaze over. We're going to talk about data. I'll try to keep it pretty light and exciting. But if anybody has more questions after and wants to get nerdy, I'm open to that. So for data, you can imagine at a company like SAP with the lines of business that we have that are acquired, different data sources, different teams, global. The complexity of data is intense at times. So the big important thing that we try to do is driving the right action to the right user at the right time. You're going to hear that probably from everybody at SAP. But the big note here is you'll get requirements that come in, or we'll hear from someone, hey, I want to see this number, this word in Totango. And the big question after that should be why. So we meet in our cohort models to talk about what are we trying to build, what are we trying to achieve. Even if the business has an idea of what they want to see in Totango and has a predefined solution, we're really talking about, okay, what is that? So we're identifying the outcome. And then we're looking for the key markers for that outcome. If we're looking at a welcome email campaign, sure, contract start date is great, but what's the reliability of that data? When are we entering that into a tool that then feeds into Totango? So it's really having knowledge about what are we really trying to do, and then being able to come back to assessing the data requirement. Source and availability, do we have this? What does it look like? Is it available for everyone? That harmonization piece is crucial for us. We don't want to be building a special snowflake for every special snowflake at SAP. So we try to drive harmonization, and it starts with data. If this data isn't available for anyone, when will it be? Do we want to include it now, or do we wait until it's adopted fully? So those kind of questions are really important. Additionally, sorry, I'm seeing like Mr. Sock Puppet, but threw me for a minute. So raw data versus KPI or aggregate, right? You have a lot of ways within Totango that you can aggregate data within the tool. It's really powerful in that way, and it's powerful with its reporting capability. Or do you want to feed in a KPI that you've built externally? Is that a number that we want to feed in that way? Or is this something where we need to look at the raw data to drive that outcome? So these are things that you want to be, or we've tried to be thinking about as those come in. And then looking beyond Totango. We're not just bringing in data and then it dies there in Totango. What do we want to do with it? So we extract data out of Totango and we use it in our other reporting. So CS sentiment, things that you've heard about in other sessions. If you've heard them from SAP, we've found to be valuable outside of just the Totango tool. So I think that's really important. If you're mastering data within Totango, what else do we want to do with this? Outside of that, for our data requirement lifecycle, like I said, we're very complex. I work with IT, enterprise analytics, and then our team. And I'm really the piece in between everything, making sure that they come together and everything's done. So that cross-functional collaboration, making sure you're engaging your IT colleagues, your enterprise analytics colleagues, if you have them, and bringing them to the table early to hear those requirements and understand the need for what we're building and why, right? We're not just handing you a task list. Get engaged in the platform. Get engaged with what we're trying to build and excited. And I think that helps us deliver faster results and also move smoother through the process. Additionally, sprint acrobatics, understand, for us it's a big thing, but we work in between 3 different sprint cycles, or I do, and that's challenging in itself. So for me, the biggest key here that I would love for everyone to hear is know your process, know how a requirement for data moves from, hey, I want to see this would be great, all the way into, hey, it's in Totango now. So what does that process look like, and how can we make it repeatable every time? And then setting expectations, everybody knows this one, but under promise, over deliver, right? And we know that process, and it usually takes 4 weeks, but we'll commit to 6, right? So just really understanding what you've got, what complexity you face, and how we can do it over and over again and make everybody happy. And then my favorite one is support workflow. I'm the first person on every requirements call to say, once we have this data, how are we gonna support it? If someone has a question about a contact or about some piece of contract date or a KPI, how would we support that? How would we investigate it and get it into the right ticket queue and get it to the right person who can resolve any data discrepancies? So I think that's very important when you're working with data, because a lot of times it can be mastered maybe in a data table and there isn't a UI presentation to go do research, and so it's really important to know, what are we gonna do with this once we have it when it breaks, because it will sometimes. So. And with that, I'll hand it over to Kaushal.
Hello, everyone. All right, so product innovations. I think anyone who is already part of Totango platform for last 1 year, they must have seen a lot of innovations done in last 1 year. And I think SAP contributed big time to that. A lot of contributions. Like today, I was in the partner session where they were mentioning about how sensitive data visibility and teams can create a brand new solution for managing partners, a channel solution. And that's something we propagated. We have about 200 teams, and we use data sensitivity and who can edit what data points and what data is visible and so on. So a lot of innovations we collaborated with Totango. And Totango has been an amazing partner on that. And we continue to do it. So in next year or so, you'll see a lot of good work done. And one of the things here is that we have more than 2,000 users. We need enterprise scale capabilities in the tool. When we started out, we had quite a bit of challenge. How we manage these many users, right? How we define their scope. All of that was a big challenge to us. And thankfully, Totango was on board with us. We worked diligently. Still a lot of work to be done, for sure, but we have made to the point where we are able to go live with 2,000 users and sustain it. So again, Totango needed to do a lot of work on enterprise scale. We continue to work on that. In terms of process, the process we use right now is any processes we design, whether it's administering the tool or data management or it's customer success processes. We think of what product gaps are there, what can be done in the product to make it better for our process-wise. And we always think of that. Then we document all the pain points, what end result we want, outcome, and we put it in our Jira system. That's where all our requirements go. Then on a quarterly basis, within SAP leadership kind of team, right? So Carrie, Shelby, everybody will sit together and we start ranking them. And we say, okay, here are the top 10 to 15 items which are critical to our success, or other customers will also benefit because we need to really sell it to Totango, right? And then we hand it over to Totango at that point in time. Totango has a complete freedom to decide what they want because their product, they decide the direction they want to take, but this is our input so that they can understand where we are coming from. So a lot of collaboration with Totango. We do not provide any feedback, anything which we don't think it should go into product. If it is SAP specific, we keep it to ourselves. It has to make sense for a product because we are the user of the product too. And so it's very important for us. So that's about how new innovations we think through and communicate to Totango in terms of what comes from them, how we consume it. So we are very proactive in terms of testing those features. Like Ibiza feature, we something have asked for because we have 2,000 users. You cannot create something brand new, release it, and we fail, right? 2,000 users are disrupted at that point in time. So we have been asking a lot of things where we can control what goes to end user, right? So Ibiza is one of the good examples, and we can control it. So testing new functionalities, features. Another thing we do really well is we take what they have developed and we think of how we can consume it in a proper process-wise, right? We just don't turn it on. We think through it and then decide, okay, this makes sense, and this is how end users will benefit. Again, we have 2,000 users. We don't want to just disrupt them. In terms of, at a very high level, just the key things, again, done a lot of collaboration with them, but in terms of these 3 areas, what we have delivered at a high level is from the Totango administration wise, the overall success team and user management, being able to manage organizational hierarchies, being able to upload teams and users in the system, being able to do the role-based access management, which was missing big time. So a lot of innovation happened in that administration side. Again, managing these many teams and these many users. I think somebody asked the question this morning also, how you do it. It's not easy. Again, some work to be done there, so I just want to make sure. Data management. Data management is another big piece. When we thought of bringing in data, there are a lot of sensitivities around who can see whose contacts and so on, right? GDPR issues. So this is where we have first created a concept called data retention, which many of you might be using. We decided how long the data stays in the system, and then it deletes by itself. We also developed the concept of collection. So like collection of data, the order collection, the opportunities, and so on. We also developed the concept of live data. So for example, support tickets. Support ticket is something you don't want a day old. You want your CSMs to know what's happening right now and get prompted, right? So we have the live connection to the support system so that we get the collection of support tickets right away. A lot of improvements in integration hub. Again, this is the Totango administration for data management, where how we process the data files, that's also handled very efficiently. And integration hub, maybe some of you don't know, it's coming in a few days. So it will be coming in a few days. And then the last but not the least about the process improvements itself. So if you see a lot of UI improvements, being able to use rich text in success plays, being able to, the overall My Portfolio UI was, not as good as we wanted. That's being improved further. It got improved first and then getting improved further, being able to use links. It sounds pretty small, but being able to use links in assets, like you don't maintain an asset directly into Totango. Asset mastered somewhere else. You want to point it to there, right? So that people use the current asset, not the one which is lying into Totango. So a lot of improvements like this. Again, if you see what I'm saying, not a single thing we will push which makes no sense in product, because we want to make sure the product stays at a product level, because we are a product company. So I think that's about product innovations. I'm going back to.
Thank you, Kaushal and Tori. Okay, we want to wrap up with this slide before we move on back to Robin. What worked well and what we learned. So what worked well? The discipline of tracking through Jira. So we also used Excel in the past, but then we learned our lessons. We want a central location, visibility, trackability, so we put everything in Jira. If it is not in Jira, we don't work on it. That's it, as simple as that. The next one is having dedicated functional and module leads. So each of us have our own assigned areas. So over the period of time, our expertise has increased. So this has helped us in 2 ways. As I was talking earlier, for the cohort model where we are collaborating with our business team, we take the role of an SME, a subject matter expert, and we're able to provide valuable consultation. And also because of this expertise, the support tickets, we are still the level 2 support. So when the tickets come in, the response time has been phenomenal. It's compared to even other platform or solutions within SAP, and that's because of the expertise that we have built over a period of time, because we are assigned to dedicated areas. And the next one is regular cadence with Totango team. I think Kaushal spoke about it in detail, how we are constantly in touch with the product team, and the feedback and testing and validation. That has helped quite a lot, and it's helped us, for us as an organization with 2,000 users. I think this is very important for us to be in constant touch with the product team. And the next one is dedicated SAP internal site. So we do have something, an internal website, which is like an always on website. It has articles, knowledge base articles, our release notes, videos, known issues, and all of these details that get updated into a jam site every day. It's constantly maintained. So this helps us. So the end user, it's more like a self-service. So if they see an issue, let's say the Totango page is not loading, or if there's an issue with data, even before they create a support ticket, they could go in here and check. And it could, if it is a known issue, then they know that someone is addressing it, so they don't have to create support tickets. So that's a dedicated site. The last one is the support model. With our support model, as you know, it involves multiple. It involves us, it involves SAP IT, and it also involves Zendesk from Totango. And there isn't a system where the tickets would flow automatically. So a very early involvement with Totango and building up a model has helped us. We have our tickets go seamlessly. They flow perfectly from SAP system from L1 to us, and if not, then we are able to redirect it to Totango if it is product related, and if it is IT or data related, we are able to rechannel them internally as well. So it's very seamless, and we could achieve that just because of a very effective support model. So what we learned, we did have challenges. So what did we learn? The first one is follow the process. It's kind of contrary to the Jira. So we did have a lot of Excel sheet and templates when all of us were supermen and women before our go live. We learned our lessons. It was hard to track, visibility, it was a mess. So there we learned our lessons, and we now have Jira. The second one is cohort model. As I spoke about this earlier, it's again, we did not have cohort model from day one. So the business used to do their homework and then say, hey, solution team, here it is, here is the requirement, go configure it. No, we couldn't. That's when we said, oh, we need to have an early conversation. Involve us early when you're building the requirement, so we could give a valuable suggestion to say if this is feasible or not, or what is feasible, and all of those conversations. So that's a learning. The cross collaboration and in very early stages has helped us through and to avoid those repetition of cycles. Our next thing we're learning, and we're still learning, is a holistic approach for user stories. So whenever a requirement comes up, let's say the requirement comes up from high touch area, we are still, there are times when we're still looking, okay, this is a requirement for high touch, but we need to look at it across the organization, across the roles. Does the same process work for digital? Does it work for enterprise customers? Does it work for a customer without CSM? This is all the scenarios that we need to think. So we need to have a very holistic approach and come up with requests and requirements that is sustainable across teams and roles. So that's, we are still learning and we are improvising there. The next one is the major and minor release as opposed to monthly. As in the beginning I said, we go on a monthly release. Before we moved into monthly release, in the beginning of this year, after our first go live in Jan, we came up with something called major and minor release. We had a definition as what would be a minor release, a major release based on the time or the effort it goes into configuration, the training enablement needs. What we learned after a couple of cycles is that we had to hold back certain functionality just because it is defined or it falls into major release. And let's say March was a minor release, and even if we are ready with a major release component, we couldn't go live, we had to wait for April. So then we said, okay, we are not doing this major, minor, we're just going live every month. This is helping us to be more agile and taking the functionality and enhancements to the CSEs right away, so they're able to leverage it. The last one, data for the sake of data. Don't bring in data to Totango just for the display purpose. It's just not another reporting tool. We have learned it, and I think all of you have also learned it. Everyone gets excited the minute there is a new fancy tool with an easy UI, let's just bring in data. So don't bring in and dump data as if it's another reporting tool. It's not a reporting tool. When we want to bring in data, we always question if there is a requirement that says, oh, can you bring renewal data? We question them. What do you want to do with this? What action should it lead? What should the CSC should do, based on this data? Do you need a report? Do you need a scorecard? Do you need a task to be triggered? Are we sending a campaign? So we want some action oriented and not just display. So that's what we have learned. And now I think I'm going to hand it over to Robin. And before I do that, please make sure you attend our communication and change management session tomorrow. There's wealth of information there.
Great, thank you. So just a few keys to remember. Communicate the process, the changes, and the functionality with the users. Make their lives better, make things easier for them. Have a clear owner of Totango to avoid the collisions, and that'll help avoid the whole data thing, because everybody wants something different, everybody wants different processes. Ensuring you have ops and engineering support to bring in the new information that you need, and always have continuous learning, right? It's not just about learning Totango and the Spark interface, but also learning about CS best practices. And lastly, make sure that Totango is evolving with you as a company as well. Thank you so much. What questions do you have?
Okay, we have enough time. I think it's about 7 minutes, so we have plenty of time for questions, and I'm sure there's plenty in the audience. So raise your hand, and I'll give you the mic.
My question is that, this is Raymond from Schneider Electric. Do you use Totango? Totango has the capability of evaluating the performance of your, maybe 1,200 CSMs in terms of the tasks they finished within the last month and so on and so forth. Do you use that as an indicator of their performance, doing some type of a load balancing?
I can. So we being a German company,
We are not so.
The answer is yes.
very, very strict in terms of how we see that. So we had to literally switch off that capability. It is useful, but German laws and mostly European laws like French laws and things like that prohibits you to anybody else other than the manager to see the performance of employee performance, things like that. But yes, that capability is good. We are thinking of improving that capability, but yes, we looked at it. We did not enable that for that reason.
We cannot use it.
Okay, and I think there's one right over here.
So if we can geek out on data, any tips on how you can clean up data? Like, we all understand the importance of it, but sometimes we get to the situation where there's a problem with the data, and the people who own Totango are not the ones who necessarily own the data, right? And how they convince the other members of the company on what did you ever face that? I don't know.
Oh, Shelby?
Oh, Shelby wants
Shelby
to
wants
answer.
to answer.
Shelby is hiding in the back.
You guys,
excited.
super special guest speaker, my manager, Shelby.
Hello?
Yeah.
Okay, so I was talking to Dimension Data NTT earlier. They've got all kinds of great things going on there, so if you want to have a conversation with him. So our strategy with data is that it's not a Totango problem if there's data, honestly. I mean, because our data is now sourced from a data warehouse, one data analytical platform, it's called ODP. Do you have end users that think they see it in Totango, therefore it's a problem in Totango? Absolutely. But we are consistently driving that message back that if it's broken here, it's broken everywhere else. Do I think we have established how do you fix some of those things? Not really. I think based on the data subject, like orders, do we find sometimes orders getting booked incorrectly? Well, that goes to an order management team. So the channels are very different depending on the data that gets reported. But yeah, we do. We struggle with that perception. We have a lot of reporting tools. Some of them don't all say the same thing. They go and do their own interpretation and represent metrics in a different way. We can't control that, right? We just can consistently say this is the one data analytic platform that's feeding Totango. This is where the data is coming from, and if we know the course correction path, we will do that. We will tell them to do that. Does that help? Sort of. Everybody has data problems, right? All of us.
But the good thing is that we are asking them, and there is awareness that we are asking them to go correct it in their source system. There are instances where people have gone back to their operations and fixed their orders because at least Totango displayed that incorrect data, so which is...
Well, and I think the most common thing we hear, honestly, is some of the lag in operational processes, right? So you think about something as basic as account assignments.
Right.
I expect to see my name on these accounts in Totango. Well, my operations person hasn't gone and done that update in the source system yet. So there's a lot of redirects like that. Again, not super easy for the end user, but I mean, it's the truth. The operational process failed, not the data.
Exactly. Thank you, Shelby.
All right, we have a couple more minutes. Go right ahead, Michael. Let me give you the mic.
Yeah, I'm from Hexagon, also big company and actually German. So we do have also a lot of products and lines of business. When you implemented Totango, is lines of business the first and then companies, or companies and then line of business?
First is the account, the company, and then the line of business, and then the product. So PepsiCo is the highest level. The second level is our lines of business, SuccessFactors, Ariba, HCM or HANA Cloud Platform. That's the second. And then the third one would be in SuccessFactors, they might have Employee Central, they might have performance management. So that's the third.
So we have now an exercise going on because we have line of business and they're all different, well, same companies, and then but different company names. How you did that?
That's a good point. We do struggle with that right now. So you're talking about Coca-Cola Atlanta versus Coca-Cola Dallas versus Coca-Cola France versus Germany. So we do have literally exact same thing. The way SAP folks used to do it is using ID, because same problem exists in CRM system also. So if you go to CRM or even the ERP system, the accounts exist multiple times. So they're used to using ID, the account ID. And so they use account ID to identify right account they are looking for. Totango does have a gaps. In fact, we are working with them to make sure that we will be able to search on account IDs as well, so that your problem gets resolved.
Okay.
Because right now, if you search Coca-Cola, the 10 Coca-Colas with different CRM ID will show up.
Right.
Right? Because the capability is just to search by name and not by ID. ID is much more unique.
Right.
Yeah.
The other component to this, though, is that the way we derive our views and our logic about who's a customer looks directly at what orders does this company have, this account? What's the makeup of those orders? Excuse me. What are the active orders or accepted orders? And then from there we derive what line of business footprints do they have. Is it still flawed? Absolutely. You can still look up Pepsi and see 10 Pepsis, and their contracts are spanning across those 10 Pepsis. But the best we can do to present the product and the contract and all the details supporting who they are is to look at the logic of the contract, which is complicated, believe me. Tori knows very well.
Another person you may want to talk to are the two gentlemen in the blue shirts next to you from NTT, because they've faced the same thing. They have AIA spelled like 80 different ways, so, and that's just 3 letters. So they can help you understand what they did.
So we managed to spell every company in every combination, in every different system, and then try and glue them all together. Try and do that across 28 companies.
Nice.
Any other?
NTT has recently brought 28 companies together, and Dimension Data being one of them. And so now they're trying to, Lawrence and team, Drew, who's sitting next to him, and the rest of the team are trying to bring what they have now to 28 companies from their original company. So it's a staggering task, and I'm sure that at next exec summit, which will be in March, I think it's going to be probably the first 2 weeks of March, Ann and I are debating. But at that next exec summit, I suspect we'll be talking more in detail about some of the challenges that these guys have faced. But Shelby, did you want to add one more thing? Oh, back there. Oh, Deborah's probably going to give me the hook, right? Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for your time, for your effort today. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to hearing more from you tomorrow.
Thank you.